Hello friends, hi, how are you? Welcome to my channel. For those of you new here, my name is Donna. Very happy to have you here. So glad that you found me today. If you are interested in a girl who's going to help you break all the rules that are out there for us ladies in our 40s, wow. You have found the right place because I am your girl. I'm out here breaking all the rules, wearing the glitter on my eyes, wearing the all kinds of color. Yep. So here on this channel, we dabble in a little bit everything princess, everything grungy, everything high-end, everything makeup chit-chat, and I hope that you are here for it because I certainly am. Today we are doing the next installment of my palette roulette series, which is just basically a review of a palette that we all have potentially in our collection and just giving you some general information, showing you some eye looks, giving you some swatches of said palette, and then pulling another palette. This was a passion project in making sure that I am using the items in my collection because I was a person that liked to buy all the beautiful things and then never touch them. So here we are, my passion project called Palette Roulette. Today we are utilizing or going over the Huda Beauty Emerald Obsessions palette, and green is my favorite color. So this is a palette that I really thought I was going to enjoy, and I'm sure that you saw the thumbnail. It wasn't a favorite for me, and that's okay. I do have like 5 of the Obsessions palettes. This happens to be one that I didn't enjoy. I did enjoy most of the other ones. I also really do like the Huda Beauty formula. To be honest, I have probably of the collections in my collection, Huda Beauty stands out as a brand that I have quite a few palettes from. So this isn't typically a formula that I'm going to dislike. It really brought me back to not liking greens on my eyes. You guys can see this that I've got going on today. I just feel like, I just don't like it. I just don't like it. And to the extent that I only have, I think, 2 different eye looks for you to look at as far as pictures go, because this is one of them, and then there was one other one that I did that I really liked. I might be able to pull out another picture or 2 from a video that I know that I did utilizing this palette so that you have a few different eye looks to look for with me utilizing this palette, but I just didn't have a great time with it. So with that being said, this is the Huda Beauty Emerald Obsessions palette. I do really love the packaging because it is, you know, the green packaging. I love the jewels on these Obsessions palettes, the front of the packaging, because all the colors in this jewel are in this palette, which I appreciate. I appreciate the front of the palette, or just the packaging of a palette looking very reminiscent of what you're going to find inside. The back of the palette looks like this. It does have all the information about the palette, the ingredients on here. It does give you the shelf life. It does tell you that there's more ingredient lists underneath this packaging if you want to peel it up, but I don't do that with my palettes, I have to be honest. I do like that this palette bends all the way back, and I also like that this has a really nice magnet on it. For those of you that don't know, I do travel quite a bit for my job, so I do need palettes that are travelable. Is that even a word? I don't think that's a word, but we're going to make it up right now. We're going to use it. The magnetic closure on a palette and whether it stays shut when something nudges it in a to-go bag is super important to me. That might be important to you too. I always like to talk about how well a palette will travel. I also like that it bends all the way back, and that magnetic closure almost works on the back side as well. I also like that it has a really decent sized mirror. You guys can see my fingerprints are all over it. So there's that, so that you can use it like this as a face mirror when you're putting on your makeup. We all know hotel rooms don't have the best lighting, so there's that. There are 9 different shadows in this palette, ranging from matte to metallic. There are only 3 matte shades, so this one, and this one are your matte shades, and the rest are shimmers and metallics. So I do feel like this is warmer to cooler tones In this palette, I do also feel like this bottom row doesn't really make sense for the rest of what's going on in the palette. I also feel like that this doesn't necessarily need to be in there. We could have had one more matte in this palette. I feel like I was missing a green somewhere in between these two as far as a matte goes. This palette has 4.5 stars on Huda Beauty, which I love because it's not a 5-star rating. It does have 1,387 reviews on Huda Beauty to make up that 4.5 stars. And on Sephora, it has 4.8 stars with approximately 2,000 reviews on it. I do think that this probably falls more in that 4.5 star realm. I definitely would not have ranked it a 4.8 stars. I probably would have painstakingly ranked it a 4.5. I will say that the shimmers in this palette I loved, and I think that for that reason it will stay in my collection. I do think that they're complementary shimmers. I wish I could pot this because I would just keep the shimmers, not necessarily the mattes. Again, I did not have a great time with the mattes in this palette. It does have 0.35 ounces of product, which means you're going to be getting 0.04 ounces per pan, and it is $27 to purchase. So not a bad price for 9 shadows. That's right there at that $3 per shadow marker. I think that that's a damn good price for 0.04 ounces per pan, because our ColourPop shadows cost about, what is it now, $6, $5 or $6 for 0.05 ounces. So $3 is, I mean, that's a really good price, to be honest. These shadows work best over primer, I would say, and it doesn't matter if it's a tacky primer or a dried down or a mattified or a set primer. I think that they do work best over primer. That is how you're going to get your longevity out of them. I will also say that these will last for about 6 to 8 hours on your eyes before you're going to see any kind of fading or creasing, typically. I do think that certain mattes fade a lot faster. This matte that I have on my eye today is this like army green matte here in the palette. And I think that it fades a lot faster than the other two, well, than this matte here. I also think that this matte here, this minty green one, is pretty much sheer upon application. So the fading isn't as noticeable because it's sheer. The shimmers though, those ones are the standouts. I do think that they're going to last about 6 to 8 hours before you notice any kind of like fading around the edges or any kind of creasing in your eye look. However, some of these shimmers did emphasize texture quite a bit on my lids, which don't have a whole lot of texture. So this one here was really texturizing. It was really bad at emphasizing texture. I would say that this one here also emphasized texture quite a bit, and it is one that I have in my eye look today. It is a super messy looking shimmer as well, and I don't know what it is about it, but it just doesn't blend out very well, so it looks very stark and messy. I would also say that this one kind of lends a little bit to texture as well, because it does have, I feel like, a little bit more of a glittery base to it. So like while it's on the inner portion of my eye look today, I do feel like it's emphasizing texture, especially on my wonky eye, around that portion of the eye that really struggles for me. I didn't have any kind of like sensitivity to these greens, which I do have typically some kind of sensitivity to greens for whatever reason. They bother my eyes so much that my eyes are just pouring water out of them. The mattes in this palette are really thin and they're dry, so I think that they don't work well with each other. They don't work well with the shimmers in this palette. They don't pack over the top of them at all very well, and they also don't work very well with others. So like when I try to put some other kind of like matte into the eye look to make it look presentable, they just don't work well with any other formula out there at all, not even the other ones in here. This is the only matte in my eye look today, and then these two shimmers. And in this eye look with that matte doesn't layer over the top of the shimmer at all. So it doesn't look blended at all. It looks like I went color, color, color and didn't try to blend any of it in. And I did try. It just doesn't work. Probably the best performing matte in this palette is this one, and the color isn't even all that fantastic. It doesn't go with every single other color in here, so this isn't going to be obviously your one and done palette, even though I could get some really great eye looks out of this. As far as color story goes and one and done nature, it's just not a one and done palette, and your mattes are probably not going to be your favorite thing in this palette to use because they just don't work well with the other ones. They don't blend well. They're 100% do not blend over the shimmers in this palette. The shimmers in this palette are thicker, and because they're a little bit thicker, they feel a little bit more silicone-y in texture, and they do sometimes emphasize texture. I showed you the ones that I felt like emphasize texture more than others, but other than that, they feel really, really good on the skin. They go on rather well if you pat them in versus like slip them over the top of your lid. They're definitely kind of like a patting kind of formula. And this one here, I actually feel like requires a glitter glue because otherwise it's built a little more flaky and it will flake out all over your skin. I don't like that there's no names for the shadows. That is just a personal preference. If you're not, you know, super hyped up for names, then this isn't going to bother you. But what I will say about that is there's definitely not any room. Like, they utilized every single space in this palette for the shades in this palette. They could have put them on the back, they could have put them on the cover, but the slip that goes over the top of this is just like a clear slip. So I am going to swatch these for you, and I'm just going to go row 1 across, row 2 across, row 3 across, and again, there's no names, so there won't be any names for you. So this is the first 3 in the palette. The first one here is that one that does get a little bit chunky. This one is just a glittery chartreuse shade. You'll want to pat this on, use a glitter glue with this one. It is a little bit warmer. This is a mint matte, and this guy is really chalky, really dry, really sheer in an eye look. As soon as you start buffing it out, it becomes just pale. There's not really any kind of color payoff to it. And then this one is just really a warmer green metallic. This actually was my favorite metallic in the palette. I felt like it went on really well. It's got a little bit of a creamier texture to it. I liked to pat it on. I saw a lot more of the like oomph to the shadow when it was patted on versus when it was swiped on, but it does well in either way. I do think that this one performed the best as far as the shimmers in the palette go. This is the middle row here. We have this one here, which is a deep green with kind of like a brownie base. This one you will want to use your finger to apply. It is in my eye look today. I feel like it is definitely the most opaque at first application of all the shimmers in this palette. I definitely feel like the consistency of this is a lot more dense, and I definitely feel like this one has a little bit more of a pearly finish versus a shimmery finish, so not like a lot of glitter texture to it. I also feel like this one doesn't blend out very well at all. Of all the shimmers, this one is probably the least happy to work with you in your brush. And I think that's part of the reason is because it goes on so much better with your finger that it just wants to be pressed in. It doesn't want to be moved around. And then we have this one here. This is a medium tealy cool toned green shimmer. I do think that it is beautiful, but I think that it's got like this blue glitter in it that kind of falls out to some extent onto your face. I do think that this one is the most buildable of all the shadows. Like, you can build this to a really opaque finish if you wanted to. It does appear very opaque on my hand, but utilizing it in an eye look, it doesn't. It is built up into the inner corners of my eyes and blended onto the lid. I did have to put about 3 layers on. I would say that this one builds best because it can build without emphasizing a large amount of texture. And then we have this matte, which is a bright tealy green matte. You guys can see, maybe when I get up close, you'll be able to see. It's not necessarily the best, but it is the best matte in this palette. I feel like it blends better than the other ones in the palette. It's got a nice opacity, better than the other ones in the palette, and it moves quite well. I don't think that it's swatched super fantastic here, but it is also drier. You're going to see quite a bit of fallout with it just because of how dry it is. These are the last 3 in the palette. So we have this first one here, which is kind of an army green matte. This is in my eye look today. It can, you know, play like a brown. It has a lot more brown in it than it does green, for sure. It just doesn't blend very well. It doesn't blend very well at all. I feel like when you try to start blending it, it just becomes this patchy mess, and it is the baseline matte in my eye look today, but it just doesn't blend well. I don't like it. It becomes super patchy, and it works well if you're patting it into a certain area and that's where it's going to stay. Like, I have it on my under eye area as well, just along the lower lash line, and I feel like it did really well along the lower lash line, but I didn't try and blend it much further than where I had placed it. Once you start blending this shade out much further than where you had placed it, it turns patchy. So, and then you try and put another shadow with it to help it, and it is worse. It creates voids. So I would say this is probably my least favorite shadow in this palette, even though that mint is super sheer and doesn't really appear very well in an eye look. It blends a lot easier and doesn't become patchy. This one definitely becomes patchy. And then we have this one, which is an olive green shimmer. This has got a warm undertone. It's got a creamier consistency. It's super easy to apply. This one probably has the best longevity in an eye look, and it's kind of got this like almost duochrominess to it. It's like green but also gold. It's really pretty olive green tone. And then we have this one here on the end, which is a warm light gold metallic. This one blends out well. This one is creamy. This one is dense but not thick. I do have it in my brow bone today, really blended out in my brow bone, and I also have it packed into my inner corner. So you guys can see it's not super thick. It does really well blending itself out, or it doesn't blend itself, but it does really well blend it out. It also does really well like just packed in. So I really quite like that shade. Even though it pains me to say this because this is one of my favorites in this, I do feel like this one could have been replaced with another like matte somewhere in between these two here, because I do feel like there's like a deeper matte missing in there somewhere. I will keep this palette in my collection, but I can see this one not being one that I pull for very often. I don't know. Time will tell, like declutter after declutter, how long this is going to last in my collection. I think I got it from IPSY, and I don't know, maybe IPSY's formulas are different from regular formulas. I've heard that before. So let me know how you guys feel about the Emerald Obsessions palette that you have in your collection and where you got it from. Was it from an IPSY bag or was it from a regular purchase? Because I'd be interested to know. Now we're going to pull another palette. For those of you new here, I do use a Samsung Note 9. I have an app in my Play Store that I downloaded called the Decide Now app, and that is what I use to pull my new palettes. It's just like a Wheel of Fortune type app that helps you make decisions. I put all of my palettes into this. As we utilize them, I pull them out. As I declutter them, I pull them out. As I haul them with you guys, I put them in. So we're just going to press the button right there, and it is going to pick a new palette for us. Yes, we got the Kaleidos Escape Pod. So I am really excited about this, and this is a palette that recently I said I was going to get some use out of this spring because it reminds me of spring. So I'm going to go pull it, and I will be right back. All right, guys, this is the Kaleidos Escape Pod. This is what the packaging looks like for this. I'm really excited. Kaleidos is a relatively new brand for me. I ordered this when I ordered the Angelica Nyquist palette that they did together. So this is what the actual palette looks like. They are rather thick. I think that that's the one thing I don't appreciate about them is how thick these palettes are. But look at how beautiful this is. Oh God, I am so excited for this palette. I hope that you guys are excited too, and I hope that you're going to want to come back next week to see how this palette fares. If you guys are interested in seeing something else from me today, YouTube will be suggesting something for you very shortly. But with that, that's all I have for you today. I hope that you guys like this video, and I hope that if you did, you're going to give it a thumbs up. I really hope that you'll also consider subscribing before you go. Do upload content multiple times a week, so please don't forget to hit the notification bell if you do that. But anyway, that's it. That's all I got for you guys. So please stay safe out there, cookies. Please do your best to keep yourselves healthy and your family healthy. Please love each other, but love each other from afar. And until next time, bye everyone.